Fine. So, good afternoon to all of you once again. We will continue further for the tips and techniques for preparing NET and GSET exams. We were discussing kinds of questions or types of questions mostly we find asked in previous NET and GSET exams. So, in the previous session, we had discussed questions based on chronology. We had seen 12 questions asked from that particular point of view in previous NET exam, right? And now we are moving further with another division that I myself, prepared, that questions based on writers groups, literary groups, movements the writers associated with. For example, three writers group, Wordsworth, Coleridge, and Southey, they are known as lake poets. Question may be like this, that who is not one of the lake poets? There will be three who are already members of that particular group, and there will be the one which you have to identify. So questions like this can also be asked. We have many groups, right? From university weeds yesterday we discussed, and then we have cavalier poets, metaphysical poets, right? Lake poets, even the big fives, means those restoration tragedies writers or comedy of manners writers group. We have 20th century movements like imagism, symbolism, expressionism, surrealism, Wordism, Dadaism, right? So there are writers associated with these movements. How did they contribute in so and so movements, right? So also remember their revolutionary or groundbreaking works which they wrote in contributing something in that movement, right? Remember all the names. Metaphysical poets, for example, see how do they differ from writers writing poetry during the Jacobean period, who are known as the cavalier poets. So information, it is all about information, but once again, knowing, going through them, knowing them, going through them, reading more, reading something more about them will give a critical understanding of so and so age group writers, right? And we must remember everything. Ultimately, most of the questions we have already seen, and we are going to see that they are based on, our memory. The more sharp we are in memory, the more will be the chance of hitting the right answers in exam paper, right? So it is altogether different, as I told you, and repeatedly I'm telling the same thing, that different techniques, different methods you will have to use for preparing these competitive exams, right? It is completely different from MA studies than the research degrees, where more critical insights are important, critical thinking is important, analytic skills are important, and here memory is more important, right? Fine. So let us see some of the questions based on different age group writers asked in previous NET GSET exams. Okay. Yeah. In January 25 NET exam, following questions were asked, and questions based on writers belonging to so and so movement or group, right? So not only knowing or getting the right answer here, but also knowing something more. If Bloomsbury group is there, if pre-Raphaelite movement poets are referred, then we must not aim to have the right answer of the question here. When we are referring previous year's papers, we will go deeper into pre-Raphaelite movements poetry, pre-Raphaelite movement, and then after the contributors, key figures associated with that, right? Uh, Going deeper, reading in and around the options given here will be the best technique to be adopted by all of us when we are preparing for these competitive exams. Here, for example, angry young men generation. And the question is, who is not associated out of four? So there will be three who are associated. And there will be more than three also associated with this one. We are supposed to find the one who is not associated with. Right? Are you getting my points? First of all, also read something about angry young generation, that why were they known as writers belonging to this particular group, and how do they differ from even lost generation writers, right? The lost generation writers are mostly American, and here are some British authors in angry young generation group. Both have the same problem. See, they are disillusioned. They are having frustration within themselves, frustration with the society, frustration with the hierarchy of the society. They wanted kind of freedom. And they were completely feeling uncomfortable with the present scenario of the society. Especially they come out to the scenario, literary field, especially after World War the First and Second both. Right? So disillusionment, nihilism, frustration, devaluation of all highest values, ennui, boredom. These are some of the outcomes of these two monstrous and terrifying world wars. And these people have completely become victim of these negative forces of life. But in angry young generation, we find more British writers like John Osborne, Terence Rattigan, Leslie Paul, Kingsley Amis, Alan Silito. And in lost generation writers, we have American writers like Gertrude Stein, Ezra Pound, Ernest Hemingway, William Faulkner, right? So this is all about in and around information. That who were they? Why were they disillusioned? Do they share the same time? Yeah. Are the causes of their disillusionment similar? And do they reflect these kinds of things in their writings? Yeah. If reflected, for example, then which are the works in which they share this kind of ideologies? Who are the characters? Who are the mouthpieces of these authors? John Osborne, the shadowy figure, Jimmy Porter in Look Back in Anger. Kitchen sink drama also is running in the same line, I think, where you will find characters staying in a very small, dingy, dirty apartment, and there we find behaving very madly. We find completely they are abnormal. When Jimmy Porter, a sadomasochist person, harassing his own wife, Allison, dominating over him, rebuking her without any reason, and a perfect example of angry young generation writer. So how is he depicted? That is what also you are supposed to go through, right? So not only knowing different movements, but also going deeper into it, that how imagist movement was different from symbolist movement, symbolism. How is surrealism is different from expressionism, Vortism, Dadaism, 20th century movements. Okay? And then writers, key figures associated with it and their contributions. Three things you must know: writers group, and then the key aspects of that particular movement, that group, contributors, and their contribution. So what happens that your understanding will broaden. You will have number of things prepared by you, collected by you. And when questions are asked, you will definitely feel comfortable with, confident with, and you will be able to Choose the right answer. Okay. Another question like this. Who among the following was not associated with? Questions. Now see the type of question also. That they do not ask you that who is there. Who one of the following is a member of Bloomsbury group. They do not ask this direct question. They will ask question that who is not. And when this kind of question is asked, it requires to have the sound and perfect information of so and so movement. Otherwise, you will fail. Otherwise, you will fail. See, type of question. So at this moment now, you must understand that they are not asking things directly. In a very indirect way, in a very tricky way, they are asking. And for that, of writers. Who among the following writers? Now, another way of asking question. There are 5 writers they have given here. Leslie Tennyson, Stephen King, Alan Locke, Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston. See, actually at present, I'm telling you types of questions. In earlier questions, we have seen who is not. And here, who are they? But again, the thing is that 5 are there. When 4 options are there, fine. Finding one who is not, again, little bit easier. But this one will be perfectly very tricky to answer. Right? Everywhere you need to have very sound knowledge. It doesn't mean that there you need to have, a little information and with that also you can work. No, everywhere the right information must be there with us. Okay. Then after, university wits, a very jackpot question. And Lil Pill Grin, Thomas Nash, Thomas Lodge, Thomas Kidd, Christopher Marlowe. Right? Fine. I think group of writers you are supposed to identify. One who is not there. So that is the group you have to identify. Yeah, associated with deconstruction. There are 2 who are associated with cultural studies. And there are 2 who are associated with deconstructionist movement. I think there is one guru and disciple. Jacques Derrida and Paul de Man. Right? Teacher and disciple. And then we have 2 other, Raymond Williams and Jonathan Dollimore. Right? Cultural studies theorists. So there, now as a reader, you will have to go and refer the 2 movements. Cultural studies, again, is a vast field. When with this, if you stop and you go on reading certain other things for your knowledge, then it's good. It is a good habit that at least you stop with this question and go deeper into that, knowing more about deconstructionist movement. That who were the other theorists other than these 2 associated with deconstructionist movement? Rolla Barthes, J.H. Miller, right? And then even I think Michel Foucault, right? Deconstructionist theorists. And then knowing something more about those writers and their works and their ideologies, their concepts. I think not reading the original essays, but reading about the essays. Then there is a difference between the 2, Reading the original essays will require a lot of time. It will require a lot of patience also. And sometimes what happens that you may even get bored reading the things, because sometimes it is incomprehensible. It seems to be indigestible also. So better you read something about the major concepts given by writers or these theorists, so that your ideologies get broadened. You will have vast we can say knowledge of so and so group of writers and their contributions in that particular movement. Okay, next, see, Which two of the novels belong to Victorian age in English novel? Victorian age. Now see, first of all, you must connect the novels with the writers, and only then you will be able to know that were they Victorian age writers or not. Right? You are supposed to connect the work with the writer and then identifying the writers belonging to so and so age. So go through the list. There are two novels. I think one novel or one work written by a writer belonging to classical age, neoclassical age. And there are three. There are three. All of them have been written during the Victorian age. But there is one work getting published after the death of the writer. And that you are supposed to identify. It was published posthumously. Posthumously means the work was published after the death of the writer. It was written during that age. So that is confusing point. And this question is little bit challenging. You can easily identify that, see, Battle of the Books is by Jonathan Swift. And now you can omit that because he is no more a writer belonging to Victorian age. Clear? Now the three remaining works. Pendennis by William Makepeace Thackeray. The Way of All Flesh, I think by Samuel Butler. And then Barchester Towers by Anthony Trollope. Right? See, now you do not know the publication years. But one thing you must know that Samuel Butler's The Way of All Flesh was published posthumously. So again, it doesn't fall into that category, Victorian age publication. And Jonathan Swift. So now your answer is quite clear that it is only A and D. Right? A and D. First and the fourth. But the option, Samuel Butler's The Way of All Flesh was confusing to you. Completely. Right? Next. Which of the following poems can be categorized as poems belonging to neoclassical period of English literature? Again, you are supposed to connect poems with the writers and then identifying the writers belonging to so and so age. The Ring and the Book by Robert Browning, I think late Victorian age writer, late Victorian age poet. The Vanity of All Human Wishes, I think Samuel Johnson. Yeah, Samuel Johnson was the writer of that particular poem. Cato, Joseph Addison. Cato is the writer of Cato is the work written by Joseph Addison. Lamia by Keats. Now, neoclassical age writers belonging to neoclassical age, who are they? Only two, Joseph Addison and Dr. Samuel Johnson. Nothing else than them. So, that's why it is important. When you just go through entire history of English literature, different periods, M.H. Abrams gives clear-cut ideas, information in his glossary of literary terms. When you read periods of English literature, right from Chaucer to postmodern period, divided into different sub-segments also. For example, Renaissance age divided into three parts: Elizabethan age, Jacobean age. This is and then the Jacobean is known as the Caroline age, Cavalier poets, and then we have this. The third one is Jacobean age, and then Caroline age, and then Commonwealth period. And with this, I think Elizabethan age ends. Right? So what happens is that now knowing more that who were the playwrights along with Shakespeare and Ben Jonson during Elizabethan age, right? So you try to find out that Beaumont, Fletcher, Middleton, Marston, right? They were the writers belonging to that particular period. Coming to Jacobean age, Cavalier poets, and then Caroline age, metaphysical poets. Okay, Commonwealth period, Puritan age, John Milton dominating the scene, particularly. And then after 1660, the Restoration age starts, and now we find this, comedy of manners, the big fives. So I just want to share with you some of the groups, some of the writers group here, so that at least you can get the idea. Notes I prepared on the basis of certain particular groups. You can also do the same thing. That helped me, which can also help you. That how did I prepare? Reading history book, right? And then if good history is there, comprehensive one, informative one, then they will give you titles like this: that the tribe of Ben Jonson. There were certain writers who followed Ben Jonson, and they are known as tribe of Ben. Tribe means group following Ben Jonson, and they were known as the tribe of Ben. So they were influenced by Ben Jonson, his classical writings, his classical thoughts, and they used satires and pastoral poetry in their writings. They used wit, conceits to make social comments, right? Cavalier poets, poets of 17th century, especially they supported Charles I during the Civil War. See, there were writers divided into two groups. Some were against monarchy and some were favoring monarchy. So Cavalier poets were supporting monarchy. Monarchy means the kingly rule, right? The ruler must be the king, or the descendants of the kings. Descendants of the king must become the next king. That is what they believed in. And there were people who wanted to demolish this monarchy and wanted to have commonwealth, means politically elected government. Right? So Cavalier poets, who were there? They were Robert Herrick, Richard Lovelace, Thomas Carew, Sir John Suckling. None of is following under the category of metaphysical poets. Now coming to metaphysical poets. Now metaphysical poetry is full of wit, conceit, far-fetched imagination, right? You will find these people getting influenced by Platonic philosophy, Platonic philosophical ideas. They are all feeling free from the artificial life. And who were they? Remember, they were, the pioneering figure is John Donne. The list starts with John Donne. And then after we have Andrew Marvell, right? Then after we have Richard Crashaw, right? Then after George Herbert, Henry Waugh, Catherine Phillips, Richard Leigh. Now we all know John Donne, Andrew Marvell. When the list is given, if some others are mentioned in the list, we feel confused. We do not know that Richard Leigh is also one of the metaphysical poets, and we have doubt when the question is asked. We become confused because our memory, we haven't memorized the full list. Our list is incomplete. We are only limited with 3 names: that John Donne, Andrew Marvell, George Herbert, Richard Crashaw. Fine, 4 names we remember, but other 4 names are also there. So the writers group, at present I'm discussing with you writers groups, their association with so and so movement, or they are writing in certain particular style. They are almost sharing the same time period and writing in a similar way, in a similar fashion, in a similar technique. Okay. Then comes to this Restoration age period, the big 5, comedy of manners. You all know their characteristics. You would have written also essay type questions during your bachelor studies. Characteristics of comedy of manners. Almost action loaded plays where you will find writers using more witty dialogues. And the prime goal of these writers is to appeal the intelligence of the audience, right? Because they are now more the propagandists of the manners of the elite class people. They also targeted them. They are also a part of their plot. Okay, marriage is always one of the prime themes. Love triangles, one of the prime themes they have explored in their writings. And in a very ridiculous manner. It doesn't mean that marriage is described as divine bonding. In a very ridiculous way, they have depicted this. Okay, so marriage relationships are mocked at, satirized by them. So this is all about this, comedy of manners. I think list is endless. Still, I have not completed entire list, but something I have thrown some light on characteristics which you are supposed to do whenever you read, refer certain groups. Go deeper into that, so that you can at least understand that comedy of manners were completely different from comedy of humors, mostly written by Ben Jonson. And how is it different? When you answer this, in interview, mostly they will ask you question that how is modernism different from postmodernism? How is new criticism different from Russian formalism? Right? Because there your critical insight is needed. How critically sound you are. That is what, it depends on your understanding. That comedy of humor and comedy of manners. And the characteristics only, but how do they differ? So, there are total 5 elements. That is blood, phlegm. I have forgotten other 3. Water, something like that. And, there is accession of, dominance of one humoristic characteristic. Humor means a kind of, characteristic dominating over a man. For example, if a person is miserly, he is completely, thoroughly miserly. Walpole, the best example, right? So there is no, they are almost flat characters. One particular characteristic, one trait of a nature is dominating over him, and just because he always commits mistakes just because of that possession of that particular whimsical mindset, possession of that particular humor, and he goes on committing mistakes, and the laughter is generated through that, right? Fine. So who are the members of this big five? Big five. I think you might be knowing this. Vanbrugh, Farquhar, Wycherley, Congreve, William Wycherley, William Congreve. They are, I think, the members of this big five. Now again, question will be like this only, that who is not a member of this? So again, you will have to remember, right? Fine. Next, the Gothic novels and the writers who wrote that sort of novels, right? At least few details will help you in knowing this particular group. That mostly the writings deal with the architecture. Gothic writings are full of darker sides of human sensibility. Even mostly it is horrifying. It is full of brooding, menace, castles, mysterious rooms, dungeons, moving statuses, means supernatural elements you will find. And then it will be complete, unpredictable actions performed by the characters. So something like this you will find in Gothic novel. Who were the writers? Writers like Wilkie Collins, then after Bram Stoker, Edgar Allan Poe. Can we consider even Dracula, the writer of Dracula? Bram Stoker, I have forgotten exactly the writer of Dracula, right? And then even Charles Dickens is considered to some extent. He is not completely considered as a writer of Gothic novels, but to some extent we find there are some darker sides of life he has presented. Gangs he has presented, the underworld gangs. Oliver Twist is one of the best examples, where uh, thieves are depicted, the place where the thieves are living, a gang and their activities. So again, falling to in that particular category to some extent, right? Okay. Then after, in Victorian age, we find liberals and agonists. Now, who are these liberals and why are they considered to be liberals? All the writers who were fighting against the injustice of society, they were considered to be liberals. Charles Dickens, Thomas Carlyle, right? Matthew Arnold. And who are the writers considered to be the members of agnostics? Agnostics. See, are these minor details? We all know who are university wits. We all know who are metaphysical poets. But these minor details, which is going to be helpful to us. Agonists, agnostics, dissatisfied with orthodox Christianity, and they are believing in the theory of evolution. They also want more emphasis to be given on science, wanted to replace dogmatism, and they were more rational by their mindset. And Origin of Species by Charles Darwin made a very huge and long lasting impressions on the mindsets of the writers. And writers getting influenced by his revolutionary and groundbreaking this theory of evolution, they also presented characters having rational mindset, who are against this rigidity or orthodox culture, dogmas and supernatural elements, existence of even God. Okay, fine. So they are known as agnostics. Okay, who are they? So leading exponents are Herbert Spencer, Thomas Henry, Henry Huxley, Leslie Stephen, Thomas Tyndall, William Kingdom Clifford. These are the writers belonging to these agnostics. Liberals, I have already discussed with you. Okay, next. Coming to 20th century, the Oxford movement, right? Even towards end of 19th century, we find this decadence movement, aestheticism, pre-Raphaelite movements. Okay, so Oxford movement, that is known as a religious movement. Mostly this movement was led by the clergymen. Clergymen studied in the Oxford University between 1833 to 1845. The period is also given. This movement, the span of this movement, that it was started by the clergymen and started in 1833, ended in 1845. All right, and they wanted to actually, what was their goal? They wanted to renew the Church of England by the Catholic doctrine and practice. So it was a kind of movement which was led for a renewal of Roman Catholic doctrine and practices. Who were the exponents? Who were the leading figures associated with Oxford movement? John Campbell, Charles Marriott, Richard Froud, Robert Wilberforce, Isaac Williams, William Palmer, right? These are writers associated with these movements. Then after coming to, see, I would perhaps not discuss each and every one. I have listed many. Decadence, aestheticism, pre-Raphaelite movement. No, pre-Raphaelite, very almost celebrated, or we can say unavoidable movements taking place in the later part of Victorian age, end of almost 19th century. A movement which was initiated by D.G. Rossetti, Originally, it was not literary but an artistic movement, and mostly the movements even taking place in the early part of 20th century, like imagism, symbolism, or Whatism, Dadaism, expressionism, surrealism, they were all mostly artistic movements. Literature is considered to be one of the arts, right? Otherwise, mainly it is related to either painting or music or dance, mostly painting, music, right? Rossetti himself was a painter poet. Yeah, and dissatisfied. He was dissatisfied with contemporary paintings that had become too formal, academic, and unrealistic. I think this figure has shown the seeds of other movements which took place in the early part of 20th century, which I mentioned just before a few seconds. That they completely departed themselves from the conventional order. What was going on before, they almost made a kind of complete departure between the two, wanted to see it taken back to realism, sensuousness, and they were more influenced by Italian painter Raphael, right? Almost this movement was led by Rossetti. So some painters organized themselves in London in 1848 into a group which came to be known as Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. And they broke shackles, as I told you, that they made a departure from the conventional order, conventional hierarchy, traditions, stereotypical traditions. And apart from this Rossetti, D.G. Rossetti, who were the other figures associated with these pre-Raphaelite movements? So we have William Morris, A.C. Swinburne. Fine, we know this. These are popular figures. But who are the others also we need to know. And now again, let me tell you, in order to remember all of them, do you need to cram rote learning? Will you apply that particular technique? No. How can you memorize all? I will give you the right technique. I practiced myself and also succeeded. The reading these names again and again. For example, in your reading of 4 hours for NET and GSET, completely dedicate yourself to 4 hours, and divide these 4 hours in different parts. At 1 hour you will read history and note making. 1 hour you will solve previous year's papers and reading in and around the information. Half an hour you will read literary terms, something like this, literary writers or literary groups, and then notes that you have already prepared, reading them daily, right? Spare at least half an hour of time that you read certain information daily. For example, writers' works, celebrated writers' works in chronological order, right? Read them daily. You will reach at a point, you will feel really confident that you will memorize everything. You will be able to identify that these novels are written by Thackeray, not Charles Dickens. These novels are by Charles Dickens, not by George Eliot. These are by only Jane Austen, not by others. You will be able to identify them. The kind of confidence will be generated within you. But it requires several readings, repeated readings. And it helps. Experience this and then you just remember me. Okay? So, other than this, D.G. Rossetti and William Morris and A.C. Swinburne, writers like William Holman Hunt, John Everett Millais, William Michael Rossetti, James Collison, and Frederick George Stephens. These are some writers associated with this movement. Okay, we have Bloomsbury group. So now, how is this group innovative, different from other groups? Group of writers, philosophers, artists. They met between 1907 to 1930. These writers, the writers, key figures of this movement met between the time 1907 to 1930 in Bloomsbury. Bloomsbury is the place situated in London district, the area around British Museum. And the place they met is now known as that particular group of writers, Bloomsbury group. Writers who met there at in the heart of this London city. The place is Bloomsbury, so that's why the particular group is named after this particular place. Now, how were they unique? What were their voice? What did they want? What are kind of ideologies they propagated? What did they want? They used to discuss, whenever they used to meet, they used to discuss aesthetic and philosophical issues, and they were completely influenced by G.E. Moore's principles and Bertrand Russell's Principia Mathematica. Bertrand Russell's work. And who were the writers? E.M. Forster, Lytton Strachey, Clive Bell, Duncan Grant, Virginia Woolf, John Maynard Keynes, and Roger Fry, right? And then we have avant-garde movement, right? These writers made experiments in their writings, and they are, they were radical and unorthodoxical. Unorthodoxical means, again, let me tell you, people will feel interested in making experiments only when they are dissatisfied with the prevailing customs, prevailing traditions, right? So these writers were experimentative in their writings. And who were they? William S. Burroughs. I'm discussing at present movement, there is avant-garde movement. William S. Burroughs, Samuel Beckett, Andre Breton. These are some of the prominent writers. The Edwardian poets, the Georgian poets, right? And the movements like Expressionism, Imagism, Symbolism, Impressionism, Surrealism, Vorticism, Dadaism, Futurism, right? All these movements, I'm discussing at present the writers belonging to certain or particular group. So, three things you will have to read in any writer's group. Which three things? First, at least about movement, then the contributors, the key figures associated with the movement, and their contribution, right? Once you are familiar, right from Chaucer's age to postmodern period, you just accumulate as much information as you can in this particular segment, in this particular aspect. Writers groups only, or different movements, different canons, schools of thought they are associated with. Okay, leave postmodern theories aside, because you will find most of the groups there, right? So it is a different part to be prepared separately. Now these writers, almost these movements that I have mentioned at present before you, they are not at all a part of critical theories of postmodern period. But again, they form a group, members of a group, literary groups, and even questions we have seen here asked from that particular group. Okay, see. Yeah, Victorian age, we have seen this. I think we have also seen this. So writers also belonging to different periods. Kitchen sink drama, once again, see. Kitchen sink drama. Now, what is this kitchen sink drama? And even how do they differ from writers writing or writers belonging to lost generation group, angry young generation group, right? See, so kitchen sink drama is a kind of British cultural movement, took place in 50s and 60s in theater. Mostly we find the protagonists projected as angry young men, and domestic violence, domestic affairs have been discussed by them. The writers mostly focus more on the domestic affairs, domestic situations of even working class people. Who are the writers? So now we have three groups: lost generation writers group, angry young generation group, writers writing kitchen sink dramas, and all of them are different. as I told you. In Lost Generation, we find American writers. In Angry Young Generation, we find British writers. And here, again, British writers. Even one name is repeated here, Terence Rattigan. He is also a member of Angry Young Men Generation group. Almost, I think, members of Angry Young Generation group have written kitchen sink dramas. So they will definitely be a member of this particular group. Okay. Right. Okay, now proceeding further. A very tricky question you will find next, and that is, actors belonging to Elizabethan period. Very celebrated actors. And two are there who have played major roles of, leading characters of Shakespearean plays. Members of even theater houses in which Shakespeare worked as actor. Most of the plays of Shakespeare were performed in those theaters. So now again, it gives me the idea that you need to list down theaters. Right from the Globe Theatre, Lord Chamberlain's Men, the Druryland Theatre Royal, right? And the list theaters where celebrated writers' plays were performed. Okay, so there are two writers here. Richard Burbage, he is prominent actor of Globe Theatre. Globe Theatre existed during Elizabethan age, the theatre where even Shakespeare has worked as actor. William Kemp is also another one, not John Campbell, but William Kemp is also a member of Lord Chamberlain's Men. The name of the theater, Lord Chamberlain's Men. Okay, even he was working with Shakespeare. Shakespeare wrote certain plays in which he played leading role also. Fine. So now you will have this Richard Burbage and John Campbell, two actors. Now actors belonging to Elizabethan period. It doesn't mean that the other two are not the actors at all. They are also actors, but one, for example, David Garrick, he is a friend of Samuel Johnson, working in London theatre. Samuel Johnson, neoclassical age. And John Campbell, he is an actor. He was an actor playing his role during 18th, end of 18th, beginning of 19th century. And the theatres he was working was the Druryland and Theatre Royal. Okay. So now, this is called in and around information. You are not focusing more on, or your prime focus is not to know only the answer. Reading all. So that what happens that if they are part of question, if for example, Burbage is not there and Campbell is not there, at least two, if they are repeated somewhere else, you know this. You have knowledge, right? Next. The great English novelists, Jane Austen, George Eliot, Henry James, Joseph Conrad. Now see, these are quotation. This is a kind of quotation written by one of 20th century leading critic. Right? Which one of the following critical texts begin with the above assertion? Right? And see, all of them are leading critics. Right? Walter Allen, Terry Eagleton, F.R. Lewis, and Ian Watt. All of them are 20th century leading critics. But whose work begins with the above line? And where you will find four writers belonging to British literature named as great novelists. And now when the word great comes, it must remind you the great tradition written by F.R. Lewis, right? So now, if I were in your place, I will also focus on which other four writers not mentioned here and which he has included. F.R. Lewis has included in great tradition writers. There are 8. And these are 4 British writers and others are American writers. Beginning from Nathaniel Hawthorne, Henry James, Edgar Allan Poe, and Herman Melville. Right? So, reading also in and around. Okay? And see, why did he call them great writers, or writers belonging to great tradition? On what grounds he termed them as great? So again, a little bit that he focused more on morality. A little bit he was traditional by mindset. That moral, ethical issues those writers are dealing with, whom he termed as the great tradition writers. Okay, fine. Next, see, hermeneutics, another cultural movement which took place in the later part of 20th century, who are associated with and who are not. Okay, one name is quite popular, Stephen Greenblatt, associated with new historicism. Clear? Yes or no? Fine. So now, I was familiar. I exactly do not know it even at present. And when I faced this question, and my answer was right. When I cross verified, I answered Husserl and Heidegger. Okay, they are the writers or prominent figures associated with hermeneutics. But it was just a kind of throwing arrow into the darkness. A little bit I tried my common sense, because I knew only one, Heidegger. Right? So again, we need to know something more about hermeneutics, other critics. Okay, see, university wits, I think these answers, this question I must not read. Right? This one, who is not, who is one of the, very jackpot kind of a question. Who is one of the? Now there are three other names, and one is there mentioned. Right? But again, let me tell you again, so far as this group is concerned, group of writers is concerned, we must know something more about all university wits. Which universities they were coming from? Some from Oxford, some were from Cambridge. So also we must know this division. Then after, who was prose writing? Sorry, who was the writer writing prose? Whose writings influenced whom? There is one euphemism style. Which writer this style is related to? John Lill, right? So, who wrote only tragedies or very celebrated tragedies? Christopher Marlowe, based on, I think that Senecan tragedies, based on Senecan tragedies, revenge tragedies. Okay, not revenge exactly, but plays. His plays are also based on the way Shakespearean plays are based on the early writers' writings. Holinshed's Chronicle, the University Wits' writings. Similarly, even his plays are also based on other writings, previous writings by the writers belonging to his preceding age. Okay. Okay. Next will be the questions relating to literary terms. Right? Literary terms. Now, I think mostly the terms, the concepts given by the key figures associated with different schools of thought, different canons, literary canons, you must be familiar with. Right? Individually you select, and then try to be familiar, as much familiar with critical thoughts, concepts, theoretical frameworks given by these critics as much as you can. And the terms are endless. The way the history is an ocean, terms, it's themselves are very broad. From whom you should start, even I cannot tell you. But one thing is clear, that a glossary of literary terms by M.H. Abrams is considered to be the Bhagavad Gita for this particular respect. In this respect, the Bhagavad Gita means what? That it covers as many as we find in literary history. More specific, detailed terms. If you want to find, then you need to read J. Kaddan's Dictionary of Literary Terms. J. Kaddan. I have brought certain books with me today. I will definitely show you all the sources that you need to rely on, refer again and again for knowing more, for a kind of detailed and systematic preparation sources that you need to refer. One of the sources is this J. Kaddan's Dictionary of Literary Terms, where you will find comprehensive discussion of all the major literary terms. But what is my observation of previous papers exams, that paper setter is focusing mostly on the terms or the concepts given by the different critics of different literary canons, schools of thought, right? For example, see, ambiguity, 7 types of ambiguity, heresy of paraphrase, right? Paradox, archetypes of literature. So again, we are reminded of Clint Brooks, Northrop Frye, W.K. Wimsatt, all new critics. You start with the new critics first. When you see that there is an ocean, so how much should I read and refer? So at that time, you separate yourself that what are the most prominent, current ones. So select, try to start reading from, this new criticism, all literary theories, theorists, and their concepts. Okay, definitely it will make you very sound in in knowing the theoretical frameworks or concepts given by these prominent critics. Which of the statements are correct? Now see, questions will like this will be asked, and asked in January 25 NET exam. So again, what happens that not only knowing different canons, but knowing something more about different canons, that what are their beliefs, what are their statements, what are their opinions, that is what you are supposed to be familiar with. Only then you will be able to know correct statements, because these are things which I have seen in the recent NET exams question papers only. These are certain things which I have found. Find correct statements. There will be 2 correct statements, and there will be 2 incorrect statements, and again it is difficult, challenging one, right? For example, see, the term performativity was coined by Derrida. I exactly know Gender Trouble by Judith Butler, where she talks of this performativity. And performativity in what sense? That she is of the opinion that sex is biological construct, but gender is socially construct. We are fixing one in one category. We never see that there could be, there could be a one, there may be a one having another, characteristics of another sex. A man may have feminine qualities and female may have masculine qualities. Each one of us is on a sliding scale, but it is on the base of performance we are dividing the two into male and female, and there she talks of performativity, right? Gender Trouble, read, very almost we can say milestone figure. Judith Butler is unavoidable when we are reading feminist criticism, when we are reading even queer theory, Other than her, there are also critics like E. Kosofsky-Sedgwick, Adrian Rich, and Alan Sinfield. E. Kosofsky-Sedgwick, Alan Sinfield, and Adrian Rich. Right? Epistemology of the closet. So again, what does this E. Kosofsky-Sedgwick say? She is repeating the same which Judith Butler has already talked of in Gender Trouble. But she is a figure favoring LGBTQs. Right? Closet, she talks of that we bind ourselves in certain restrictions, that if a male is there, he is performing in this way, his role in this way. Female is there performing her role in this way only. And that's why, even in our society, there are certain kinds of trends that dolls are always liked by the girl child, and it is meant for girl child only. And if a male child is playing with doll, no, parents will rebuke him. See, it is meant for this sister or sister. It is not meant for you. You are not supposed to play with dolls. You are supposed to play with bat and ball. So outdoor games are meant for boys. Inside and indoor games are meant for girls. Right? So we have restricted, we have termed specifically that what is masculinity and what is femininity. And we are supposed to break these shackles, these boundaries, this closet, epistemology of the closet, where she talks of this. And that's why she is of the opinion that a male, a female, when she indulges in the sexual intercourse with the male, at that time there will always be hierarchy, one who is dominating and another who is dominated by. So when, that's why, this hierarchy will stay itself and it will never be broken down. So what happens that you should allow even homosexuals and lesbian relationships, you should regard them as natural, which is considered to be abnormal. Right? Actually, she has given this kind of revolutionary ideas, propagated these kinds of ideas in this work, Epistemology of the Closet, that a female feels more freedom with the relationship with another female, not with the relationship with a male. That is what she says. Epistemology of the Closet is the book almost, running in parallel with this one, Judith Butler's Gender Trouble. Fine, I must tell one thing to myself, that now it is not the session of this queer theory or feminism at present, but I was just telling you that, reading in and around, it will give the idea so that you can give the answer that which statement is true, which statement is not true. Because it is, it requires to have a very clear understanding. This it requires to have critical understanding also. Critical understanding also. The idea of meme was originally coined by Richard Dawkins. Exactly, I do not know anything about this. I must admit this. The term culture industry was coined by Adorno and Horkheimer. Okay. Womanism was coined by Alice Walker. Clear? So A and D or ACD. What is the right answer? BCD. Okay. I think A is not the correct one. Yeah. So I think this question was asked in previous NET exam. Based on literary terms, based on concepts, theoretical concepts, theoretical frameworks given by prominent literary figures associated with different schools of thought. Okay, see here, matching list 1 with list B, and in list 1, column 1, you will find terms, and in column B, you will find their critics or the theorists who have given those terms. Culture industry, anxiety of influence, cultural materialism, dialogism. Very good answer, almost 50%. You see, if I were a student facing this question, what will I do? See, I have not seen it. Opened options. What are the options given? But I know dialogism is associated with the concept given by Mikhail Bakhtin, right? Multiplicity of characters. He talks of multiple voices, dialogism, and he talks of monological and dialogical writings. We will discuss this, this structuralism and post-structuralism after this particular category. Okay, because that particular sessions I was supposed to deliver at present, but I thought that even some basic things, some useful things I will discuss with the students first, and if time permits, we'll definitely discuss with you whatever I have prepared for you regarding theories of postmodern period. Okay, so let us see dialogism, cultural materialism, again Raymond Williams. So D with 3, right, and C with 1 means, this dialogism, D with 3, C with 1. Which are the options giving this possibility that D with 3, C with 1? Options not given. Exactly. I took the screenshots of the paper, and that's why somewhere perhaps in pasting the screenshot it would have been hidden. But one thing is clear, that with this clue you can proceed further, right? You can proceed further. Means these two, 50% as and how many options give this kind of possibility? If one, oh, it is jackpot. If two, then again, so much. For example, you do not know anything. You try to align now. See, anxiety of influence. At present, I know it is connected with this Harold Bloom, right? And cultural industry, this Theodore Adorno and Herkimer, right? Fine. See, at present we know this, that which concept is associated with which theorist. But if you are having only 50% of knowledge, and if two possibilities are there, then that question is considered to be a Ram Bharose question. You hit any of the two, one of the two. If Lord Ram is happy with you, you would have hit right answer. Otherwise, what can we do now? See, two possibilities where two are completely unknown to you, and two are known to you, and two possibilities there, right? If already given one, it is jackpot question. Question based on literary term or concept. Another question. Literariness. Which among the following critics stated that the object of study in literary science is not literature, but literariness? And that is what makes a given work literary work. I think this quotation reminds me of Russian formalism. And I think it is with this thought, it differs from new criticism. Because in new criticism also, form is considered very important. Content is also equally given more importance. Both form and content are given importance. But only in Russian formalism, techniques, style, pattern, design used by writer is given more importance. Only technique. How the writer is made literary, it is based on literariness. How you judge a text on the, it is to be judged on the basis of literariness. Now, what is the meaning of literariness? That what kind of unique style, how the work is made unique through its different technique. This is how work is judged. And now there are critics belonging to even Russian formalism here. Two I know, Clint Brooks and Alan Tate, that they are the critics of new critical thoughts, new criticism. Right? Two, Alan Tate, Clint Brooks. And then after, Victor Slowacki and Roman Jakobson. Right? There is one who has also given another thought, that is defamiliarization. literariness and defamiliarization. When you read Russian formalism, don't avoid these two. Don't forget these two. You must read what is literariness and what is the theory of defamiliarization. Now, what is the meaning of defamiliarization? Right? See, our goal is not to find the answer here, but looking at the things that how the questions are asked. Okay? See, literariness. Literariness, we have already gone through and discussed. Defamiliarization. What is this defamiliarization? That presenting even common things in an unfamiliar way, in a very unique way. That is known as defamiliarization. See, this is my definition, not definition I have cited here from M.H. Abrams or J. Cudden or any other dictionary. Making things uncommon, making things unique, presenting common things in an arbitrary way, in a unique way, making it defamiliar. And that's why this concept is known as theory of defamiliarization. I think Jacobson has given theory of defamiliarization, and Victor Slavorsky has discussed something about this literariness. I think it is to be verified by you now. Russian formalists. Russian formalists. So again, when you read Russian formalism, you must also read new criticism. As I yesterday told you, when you read postmodernism, you please first read modernism. Right? When you read, yeah. Okay. You saw the question. That's why the movement took place. That's why. Fine. So, read certain things in relation to other things. How are they correlated? How do they differ? What are things commonly found in both? When you read diachronic study, please read synchronic study. When you read, romantic poetry, the revival of romanticism, so please also read the neoclassical poetry. When you read phonology, also read logocentrism, phonocentrism. Correlate the two. Read parallelly and find the difference. It will definitely broaden the understanding. That is what I did. Let me tell you. When you read semiotics, definitely you will have to take certain structuralism critics associated with structuralism, narratology. No doubt, part of semiotic studies. Again, it is also a part of structuralism. Vladimir Prop is also a semiotic critic, and is also a critic, one of the celebrated critics of structuralism movement. Right? A.J. Grimus, Vladimir Prop, then after Claude Lévi-Strauss, they are all interconnected. Clear? Discussing the science of language, the evolution of language. Fine. Lost generation, term coined by Gertrude Stein. So who were they? So basic knowledge of lost generation will give you this answer. Only basic knowledge of this term will give you the idea. Basic knowledge. As I told you, in lost generation group, we find more American writers. Even some of them had the first-hand experience of fighting as soldier on the battlefield. The writers like Ernest Hemingway playing a very important role in Spanish Civil War, started in 1936 and ended in 1939, and it was the rehearsal of the Second World War. One who wanted politically elected government, right? And another wanted complete domination of one person. Spanish Civil War. So those were the people who themselves fought as soldiers on the battlefield, American expatriates in Europe after the First World War. These all writers. I also named a few before few moments. That who were they? Okay, based on literary term. Point which a very tricky question, very strange also. That which of the following descriptions delineate Roman eclipse? Roman eclipse is not English word, but it means novel with key. Now, which of the four descriptions describes this particular genre, this particular type of fiction? We all know Bildungsroman novel. We all know picaresque novel, right? Thug's life, Rug's life, writing right from innocence to getting maturity. Everything we know, and we must know when we read certain things. We should have clear-cut ideas. So, which of the following descriptions is true, describing this novel with a key? Okay. See, a novel depicting the life of an artist from childhood to maturity, novel using altered names of the actual people of the time, novel describing historical incidents with fictional characters, or novel giving the effect of realism by highlighting the social problems of time. See, which one? A novel describing, a novel using the altered names of the actual people of the time. Sometimes what happens that historical figures have been taken into consideration, but if a writer is writing something about the power hungry men like Hitler, Mussolini, or Stalin, but he will not use the same names. He will use different names for characters. So altered names, it means novel with a key. Roman eclipse, a literary term. Clear? Proceeding further now. Lang. What is the meaning of lang? System of differences, dialectic between thought and speech, individual speech acts, lang and parole. So far as I know, I have the idea that lang means, a kind of systematic unit of grammar, systematic unit of language, and parole means actual usage of that particular language. Okay, so syntax, grammar, syntactic study, semantic study, that falls under the category of this lang. So do we find this kind of option given here? Just a minute. Number 3. Why is this question is problematic? Because there are two answers of this question. Individual speech acts and language in an abstract sense. Yeah, language in an abstract sense. Rules are always abstract. Yeah, grammar, for example, see, grammatical patterns, rules, right? Language rules are all abstract in sense. So that is, I think, the right answer. But we must know the concepts given by Ferdinand de Saussure of lang and parole in detail. Okay. Next, questions based on the terms. Just a minute. Yeah, I have written here about that particular question. Number 3. Actually, there are two answers. And what happens that when you have these two answers, 1 and 4. So what happens that when if, for example, there is 1 is to be tick marked. If this set question is there, once oval you can darken. There are not 2. And you cannot even do 2. So one of the 2 you write. Right? If you have chosen 1 and 4, either of the 2, definitely you will have your answer, means marks will be given to you. Are you getting my points? There will be some debatable questions, objections raised, and they are also granted. If they are having base, logic, and proved by authentic history books or authentic source, then certain answers are revised. Okay. Next, from which Greek word does the term comedy derive, and what does it mean? Fine. Comedy word is derived from commodia, right? Commodia. Actually, commodia is a kind of group song sung for the fun and laughter. Commodia, right? Commedia, commodios, comedion, like certain similar words. But second is the right, second option is the right answer. Euphemism. John Lill, we are reminded of. Lill, euphemism. What is the meaning of euphemism? Exalted and grand style of writing, not an ordinary writing. Yeah. Now, paired terms incorrect in its explication. So there are three which are incorrect. But there is one which is completely matching with another. Are you getting my points? There are four terms given and their description. Three are wrong. Means in B column, wrong descriptions are given, but one is correct. What is that? Exactly. Sound system, phonology. Otherwise, this, semiology. Semiology actually is not dealing with ordering of speech sounds, but it is a study of sign process. Language is made of different signs. I think semiotics, structural critics having contributed a lot in structuralism, they are of the opinion that it is language is made of different signs. Study of sign process is related to semiology. Etymology, exactly, and then morphology. Morphology is dealing with forms, structure, and structural signs are dealing with semiotics. Again, these are, we can say, similar kind of terms, but exact information will enable us to hit the right answer. Okay, next. Which of the following statements best describes T.S. Eliot's assertion that Shakespeare's Hamlet is artistic failure? So just tell me here which of his sentences prove other three are wrong. One sentence is correctly describing, describing T.S. Eliot's assertion that Hamlet is artistic failure. But on what grounds it is artistic failure? That is what is clarified in one of the four sentences. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely right. T.S. Eliot felt that Hamlet is not objectively, he is now more, I think, preferring to have objective correlativity. Means he is of the opinion that writers do not need to become personal. I think tradition and individual talent also, there he talks of this theory of depersonalization. So there, you do not need to be emotionally connected. You do not need to be subjective. And even if, characters are presented as tools, so there must not be, the profound emotions presented by the profound, somewhere, somehow we find Hamlet's inaction is completely becoming something heavier. Right? And there T.S. Eliot feels, it is his view, actually it is not my observation. He said that he his emotions have not been rightly or perfectly objectified. Okay, fine. So I think this requires to have clear cut critical understanding, right? Next question. Dramatic irony, again, critical insights we must have, only then we will be able to know. Just a minute. Characters, what is the meaning of dramatic irony? Dramatic irony, so literary term. And read, you will find that, see whether A is right or B. No, C is more right. We may feel when the options are before us, we get confused, right? When options are given, when we read all of them minutely, we observe them, we get confused. Read and just tell me, what is your understanding of dramatic irony? Actually, the question is directly related to that. Mhm. Fine. Whatever is presented on the stage through dramatic performance is completely opposite to our expectation, right? Fine. Okay. Fourth option also I would present before you so that you can read. Dramatist's irony reinforces actors' performance, thereby fulfilling audience's expectations. I think this is completely irrelevant. So we have to rely on the first three. But irony, it means what? Happening certain things which was not expected, right? Which was not expected. Something opposite happens. Contradictory things happen. I think the best example of irony is O. Henry's famous short story. When wife purchases a beautiful combs for husband for his hair, and something like this. I think no, husband purchases combs for wife, and wife purchases. I think this. What is not watch exactly? Band, band, a band for the beautiful watch of husband. Because of not having bands, husband was unable to wear watch, and wife had beautiful hair but he didn't have combs. And each one of them sells these two. Husband sells bands in order to sorry, watch in order to purchase combs, and wife sells hair in order to have money to purchase for bands. And reverse happens, completely contradictory things happen, right? So character's knowledge or expectation is contradicted by the audience knows or by the outcome of events. And audience knows or expects something to happen, but the events on stage turn out to be different. One of the two is the right option. Now tell me, what is the right option? Actually, see, again, dramatic irony. Is it related to audience or it is related to characters? If you know this, then you will be able to answer. I'm asking this question to you. I want to ask you question whether irony is relevant to audience or it is relevant to the expectations of characters. Characters, not the audience. Right? Fine. So number one is the right answer. So again, it requires to have critical understanding. Yeah, information. See, here is not the information asked, exact facts and figures asked. Okay. Next, here again, language systems. So clear cut understanding of what is Creole, what is dialect, what is colloquial, and what is pidgin. Which of the following? Again, information also is important for you. Information and also critical understanding of different terms associated with language and its evolution. We have this in syllabus. Language. I think based on ELT, some basic terms you need to be familiar with. And I think we feel that they are altogether similar. I had me in my mind when I saw this this question. I thought that dialects and colloquial almost are the same. There is no difference between the two. Almost dialects are called colloquial, or colloquial language is itself a dialect. But they are not the same. Creole was different technical term, Pidgin technical term. And now the question is, see, again, I'm showing these questions in order to make you feel that minor details are also asked. Critical understanding, some questions will definitely require us to think critically. Doesn't mean that facts and figures will always help. Okay, fine. So I think, what is the meaning of Creole? A native language. All are related to native languages, or types of languages. Native language characterized by large vocabulary. Native language, but it is characterized by large vocabulary. It doesn't mean that language is limited to a limited segment with limited words. Okay? And what is Pidgin? Simplified language developed between people who speak different languages. Now again, we will have to have certain live examples. We have Kutchi, we have Kathiawadi, we have Surti, and all of them are using Gujarati. Right? Gujarati is our mother tongue. Now even mother tongue is fifth term. Here we have Creole, we have Pidgin, we have dialect, colloquial, and mother tongue. Right? See, there are colonies where what happens, the two groups are living. Now I'm explaining you Pidgin. At present I'm explaining you the fourth option. Two groups, minor groups, are living in an area, in a locality, and these two groups have their two languages, mother languages. But in order to have daily affairs communicated, they use simplified version, and the simplified language is Pidgin. And that's why, here, resulting from language, resulting from the contact of two mutually unintelligible language systems. That Pidgin. Technical terms technical definition given here. But for that, we need to understand what is Creole. Native language characterized by large vocabulary, dialect. Regional or social variety of language. So our Desi, Kathiawadi, Gujarati falls into this particular category, dialect. Right? We have unique way of speaking that language. Even in Godhra, when I visit any shop, any mall, even in university staff, they easily identify me that you are coming from Bhavnagar, I think, right? Rajkot or something like that. You are from Kathiawad. Yeah. So, accents, tone, and the way we speak, that gets, that makes us clear, and it establishes our identity that you are from this region, and that's why it is regional language. Okay, Manvini Bhavai, written by Pannalal Patel. So almost we can say that it is written in regional language. But how is colloquial different from this dialect? So informal style of language, non-standard vocabulary used in everyday conversation. Non-standard vocabulary used in everyday conversation. Informally, the language is used having non-standard vocabulary, that is known as colloquial. So now again the problem is with this dialect. See, I think we will call dialect as the regional language. where there is unique way of speaking it. But here we'll find informal vocabulary is there. So can we consider Surti, because they know, they use some informal uh, or non-standard vocabulary. Non-standard means they are using mostly slangs. Because my family has been there in Surat for more than 15-20 years. So almost I also know them. Actually, they even do not take care of women. For example, male staff, even in presence of a female one, almost a 3-degree or 4-degree, 3rd-degree slangs they will use, and it is common for them, non-standard. Fine. Actually, I'm not criticizing them. It is their way of speaking. So again, see, it is my interpretation. I'm not telling that, see, this is the right interpretation, right definition of colloquial. We need to know this. It is a matter of investigation for us. I'm leaving it to you now to interpret, to read, and know something more about these 4 terms. Clear? We have not reached to conclusion. I am only sure with 2, Creole and Pidgin. Okay? Fine. Our performance, Noam Chomsky, is a very popular concept. Almost it is related to parole, the kind of concept given by Padinandi de Saussure, right? Which of the following correctly describes black humor as morbid and provocative treatment of black humor? See, black humor, then after this magic realism, dark humor, dark comedies, theater of absurd. We all need to go through these terms. Intertextuality, pastiche, right? See, postmodern concepts or theoretical concepts given by postmodernist critics. Okay, so what is called black humor? Is it related, or does it deal with old age and disease? Does it deal with youth and passionate love, death and disease, or childhood and accident? I think death and disease. Rightly, almost we can say it is the right description of black humor. Okay, so we need to know this. We need to know this. Yesterday I was discussing this with you, that when you read postmodern theory, you please always go through modernism, because on one hand we have science fiction, and on other hand we have meta fiction, cyber fiction, climate fiction, right? So we have almost different genre developed later on. Okay, in one we can say heteronormativity is considered to be normal. Heteronormal relations are considered to be normal, and in another age group, in postmodern era, minority groups are evolving, and they say that even lesbians and gay and homosexual relationships are considered to be, or need to be considered as normal, natural. So difference we always need to look into. Are you getting my points? Heteronormativity, heterosexuality, and then after we have here as minority groups, LGBTQs evolving, having their own voice. Okay, yeah. Gramsci's term, which itself signifies domination, Antonio Gramsci, who influenced even almost all theorists associated with cultural studies, Antonio Gramsci. So his term for cultural consensus supporting capitalism, even actually he has bitterly criticized the domination and unequal distribution of wealth. More or less, he is also following the path laid by Ernest Mandel and even Karl Marx, right? Because they are criticizing the capitalistic structures where we find wealth unequally distributed, and because of that reason we find classes, bourgeois, and then proletariat, base and super base, who are controlling who are getting controlled by. That is what they are discussing. Hegemony is the right answer here. Hegemony means domination, supremacy over something, someone. Okay, fine. Yes. So another question based on literary term, Harlem Renaissance movement, which took place in 20s, 30s in America by the Afro-American writers. Yeah, cultural movement, flourishing of African American. Because I used the two words, 20s, 30s, and also used the word African American writers. See, again, let me tell you. See, you perhaps have failed in understanding my discussion that exactly we are not here for the answer. We are here for how the questions have been framed and in what way questions can be framed in the exam we will appear in future. Are you getting my points? There, I think we need to focus more on. You are absolutely right in your answer. The thing is that we are discussing here different categories, questions divided into different categories, how the questions have been asked. Next. Fine. So I think this was the last category I wanted to discuss. Other three are still left. Questions based on literary theories, questions based on common sense, and questions based on easier questions. As I told you, there will be 10 to 12 questions which you will fill, hitting the option with your closed eyes, and that it will be right. Jackpot questions. Okay, fine. I think it is enough for our today's discussion. Just a minute. You stop sharing. Sorry, stop live streaming. Means you stopped or not at present? Okay, fine. So you give your feedback quickly. I want to have we give you booster dose. I will definitely, because it is needed. It is needed, and I want to be very spontaneous in booster dose, especially. Fine. So you have still continuing live streaming. Okay, fine. Yeah, no problem. Fine. Yeah. So I think see now this the platform is open for your feedback, your queries also. Yeah. Before we have feedback, I think it's better to have queries. Queries first. Just a minute. If you have any queries. Oh, fine. Having Let us have feedback first.
Okay, hello everyone. Without wasting much time, I would like to invite Bhumi Mahida for feedback.
Okay, so first of all, I sincerely thankful to Dr. Vijay sir uh, for spending 2 days with us, and thank you for your valuable time. Uh, Sir was mentioned many things that what we have to do or what we not to do. That and also mentioned that. Um it's not important to what we read, but it's important to how we read. And he also mentioned that for the GSET exam, that countdown already is a begun. So hope we will do our best and will give our best. And I request to sir that can you please share your notes for our for the get more, we get more ideas from this. And yes, and otherwise we have that Ram Bharose answer, and throwing the arrow in the darkness and jackpot and everything. So yes, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Bhumi. Now I call upon Khushi Magwana to share her feedback.
I'm truly grateful to you, sir, for your guidance and support, and your clear explanation and motivating word that really inspire us. And behalf of all the department, a heartfelt thank you for your valuable time and encouragement. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Khushi. Now I would like to invite Spruti Bader for vote of thanks.
Hello, good evening, everyone. It is a privilege and honor of mine to give a vote of to extend a vote of thanks to on the behalf of Department of English to Dr. Vijay Mangukiya sir. We are truly lucky that we had your sessions throughout the day, and your valuable insights and the practical strategies you have given to us to what to do in the exams, as we are the beginners of this field, and it was truly helpful for us. I'm very grateful to you also to make this session successful by presenting over here, and as a token of our heartfelt gratitude, we are pleased to give you a letter for appreciation and a book to Vijay Mangukiya sir. I would like to call Shruti to and Vijay Mangukiya sir to uh, thank you, sir.